Good afternoon and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story. Germany is set to reopen all shops and schools as Chancellor Angela Merkel and state governments agree on a draft plan to ease lockdown restrictions. As per the draft agreement, shops, regardless of their size, will be allowed to reopen if they adhere to strict hygiene. Students will return to school in stages. Germany also plans to resume its football league or Bundesliga matches later this month. However, fans will not be allowed to attend the matches. The country will also lift a ban on outdoor sports for children. Care homes will be allowed to receive visitors if there is no active COVID-19 case in the facility. However, a ban on large gatherings will remain in place until August. Meanwhile, Merkel is likely to face a taste of her authority when she meets state leaders to discuss the final exit plan. As per the draft deal, the responsibility for easing the lockdown measures will pass to state leaders who can make their own plans. States so far follow the federal government's lockdown protocols and rarely introduce any restrictions of their own. However, several states which have fewer coronavirus cases began demanding complete economic reopening. But the federal government is likely to recommend reimpositions of restrictions if states witness a spike in COVID-19 cases. Now, we are being joined by Thomas Sparrow, a political correspondent for DW, live from Berlin. Good afternoon, welcome, and thanks for being with us. Now, lockdown measures being eased considerably in Germany. They will be reopening churches, hair salons, galleries, museums, and shops. Beyond this, even schools are set to reopen. Is this move too soon?
Well, that is the big question, if this move is too soon, and that's why German officials, not only Angela Merkel, but also regional officials, have been balancing a very important dilemma, if you will, how to make sure that Germany can go back to a new sense of normality while at the same time maintaining those very important social distancing and hygiene measures. And that's why Germany has been carrying out a sort of cautious approach to the reopening and to easing some of those restrictions. First, for example, by opening certain shops a few weeks ago, then by adding museums, for example, or zoos or botanical gardens or churches. And the next step, if agreed today by the German Chancellor and regional leaders, will include what you mentioned just a few minutes ago, that all shops, for example, will be allowed to open, that the Bundesliga, the German football league, could restart in the next few weeks, although without any people actually in the stands. But those are, again, issues that are going to be discussed between Germany's Chancellor, Angela Merkel, and the regional leaders. And the reason for that is that, obviously, Germany, as a federal country, has a federal structure. And many of those decisions actually fall into the hands of regional leaders, not necessarily the federal government. And that's why it is a bit difficult to try and bring all the different interests together and try and make sure that even though each state can decide individually, there is at least a common strategy agreed on by the federal and the regional authorities.
Now, what is the current status of COVID-19 in the country as we stand that makes them confident that they can move towards these reopenings?
Essentially because infection rates are falling, and that is something that the country has been looking at very carefully. Also, because if you compare the death rate in Germany to the death rate in other European countries, that is significantly lower, and that is also an important point. A third element, because testing has also been increased, so Germany is confident that through testing they can actually continue to help and identify patients who, for example, do not have symptoms or have low symptoms. So these are elements that play in Germany's favor. But, and it is an important but, Angela Merkel and other leaders have stressed time and time again that this success is a fragile success and also a temporary success. In other words, that some restrictions still have to be put in place, social distancing restrictions, for example, or the use of face masks, which are compulsory now here in Germany if you're in shops or in public transport, and obviously travel still being restricted and no mass gatherings or mass events. So that gives you an idea of how this is being handled here. On the one hand, a cautious reopening, but on the other hand, also making sure that some of those elements are still in place because authorities believe that this is still a fragile success that Germany is experiencing here when it comes to coronavirus.
Right, Thomas, and we know it is the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II on Friday, and we're hearing reports that there will be commemorations that will be held. What are we expecting? Will social distancing measures be followed? As you mentioned, mass gatherings are not allowed. What will be happening on Friday?
That's certainly the case. Before coronavirus, a big event had been planned, obviously, to mark this very important date. Obviously now with coronavirus things have changed a bit, but this will not stop German leaders, the German president, the German Chancellor, from at least commemorating it in a slightly different way. So they will be meeting on Friday. The German president is expected to give a speech on the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II. And obviously there will be social distancing measures in place. Journalists, for example, only very few journalists will be allowed to attend. No public will be allowed to attend, and this follows some of the other plans as well that had been organized. So, for example, many exhibitions have now been moved to the digital realm. So you have digital exhibitions on what this means for Germany, what this means for Europe. But all in all, you can say that despite the fact that we have coronavirus here and also in other parts of the world, German leaders are still obviously interested in commemorating this very important day, which, by the way, will also be commemorated in other parts of Europe as well.
Right, thank you very much for joining us. That is Thomas Sparrow, our DW correspondent, joining us live from Berlin for the latest on COVID-19 updates there.